Hey guys, I wanted to talk today about shame and how it affects you and what you can do about it. So the first thing is that, how I always talk about emotions are like lights on your car, and they give you warnings about things, and how we don't put stickers over our fuel gauge because our car will still run out of gas and then we'll just be screwed. We don't want to cover up your emotions and push them away because they're trying to tell you something. And I think one thing that a lot of people don't deal with is shame, and how shame affects you. And one thing I wanted to talk to you today, I don't know if you've ever listened to Brene Brown, but she talks a lot about shame and vulnerability and all that kind of thing. One thing people don't talk about when they talk about shame is anger. And I think it's important to notice the correlation, because a lot of times what we use shame for is to cover up anger. And when we feel that shame come up, so the difference between guilt and shame is guilt says I did something wrong. Shame says there's something wrong with me. I am wrong. I am bad. I am a horrible person. I'm worthless. Those kind of thoughts. Those are coming from shame. And one thing I've noticed so much, in my own life and my clients' lives, is that shame comes from often, not always, but shame often comes from pushing away anger. And anger is a beautiful emotion that most people don't like to feel and don't like other people to feel around them. So a lot of times what happens is something will happen in our lives, and instead of feeling angry about what happened, we put it inside of ourselves. And a lot of times this comes from childhood, because for some reason people don't like children to feel anger, which is ludicrous. We should all feel anger. Anger is just as fine as feeling happy. And when we feel anger about something that happened to us or disappointment, we just point it inside of ourselves, and we shame and we blame ourselves. Or worse, other people shame you for how you feel. And it's time as adults that we stop allowing that to happen to us, doing it to ourselves or allowing other people to do it to us. So if you see someone shaming you, get angry about it because it's wrong. Don't point it inside of you. If somebody is shaming you, that's on them, and you have every right to be angry. Get fired up. Say no. Walk away. Do whatever you need to do. But own the fact that you are allowed to feel any emotion that you have, and that is totally not even okay. It's totally normal, and it's totally right. And every emotion you have is okay. Now, the only thing that's wrong that people fear anger is when people act out in anger. So punching someone is not anger. Punching someone is punching someone. And it might come from the act of anger. It might come from jealousy. It comes from any emotion. Punching someone is completely separate from anger. They might coincide sometimes. So allow yourself to feel that anger, and once you start to allow yourself to feel that anger, what you're going to notice is all of that shame you've been pointing inside to yourself needed to be going outward, right? For the most part. And a lot of times people don't give themselves permission to feel emotions outside of themselves. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, it's okay to think that was a crappy thing to do. You move on with your life. But what happens is when you boil up and you bottle up all of those feelings over your whole life of nobody listening to you and everything feeling out of control, then when someone cuts you off in traffic, it's like this huge thing where you're like, and you can't stand it. And it really has nothing to do with that person cutting you off in traffic. It has to do with all of the feelings that are bottled up inside of you. So when you really start to let yourself feel, honor your feelings, know they're there to teach you, then things don't get blown out of proportion anymore. Once you're starting to it's like a flow, like a waterfall. It comes in, it goes out, comes in, it goes out. It's fine. Any emotion is fine. And really let yourself sit with those emotions and feel them and be okay with them. When you're angry, be okay with the fact that you're angry. When you're excited, let yourself feel excitement. Don't sit there and come up with all the reasons why it might not work or why you shouldn't feel excited or whatever. Just let yourself feel those feelings. And I think what you'll notice is that all of that shame that you're pointing inward to yourself, whether it came from other people teaching you that or it came from you pointing it inward to yourself, when you start to let those emotions come up, then you'll start to see shame in a different way. And when you hear those words like, "Oh, I'm so worthless," suddenly they'll be like, what? I'm not worthless? Where did that even come from? Like, I just made a mistake. And you'll start to have more mercy and compassion on yourself. It's that bottling up of those emotions that causes all of that inward turmoil. It's like if you have, like, let's say you put a Minto in a Coke and you try to put your hand over the top of it, like, you're gonna have a lot of problems. Like, it's gonna try to come out and it's gonna be falling out the sides. But if you drop a Minto in a Coke and you run away, it just everywhere, and then it stops. And that's how our emotions are. When something happens, it's like that Minto in the Coke. It explodes everywhere, and it's fine. Let yourself feel, like, if something happens and you feel so excited about it, let yourself feel excited about it. Let yourself feel your feelings. And then you're going to notice that those negative thoughts that are going on in your mind are starting to, you'll be able to notice them and really have an objective view of them. And so, like, maybe you're in a situation where someone's, like, saying really harsh things to you, where normally you would go inside and you'd be like, oh, I'm such a terrible person. I can't believe I let this happen. What you're going to notice when you start to let those emotions flow on a natural, all the time basis is when people say things to you, you're going to be really objective, and you're going to be like, okay, did I do something wrong that I can fix? Or is this the other person? And I'm not a terrible person. You're just wrong. And that's okay. Other people can be wrong. And when we start to, like I said, when we start to let those emotions flow, we can have so much mercy and compassion on ourselves and beautifully for other people. So whenever you feel shame, I want you to stop and think, where did this come from? Because it's not my natural state of being. It's not in alignment with God, with who you are. None of that is in alignment. So anytime you think I'm a terrible person, I'm horrible, I'm worthless, any of those thoughts, stop and think, this is not real. This is coming from something else. And look at your emotions and see what emotions you're bottling up. And I think you'll just notice a beautiful, glorious, like, growth in yourself and the way you love yourself and the way you love other people around you. It'll change your whole life. I guarantee you. When you start allowing yourself to feel emotions, it'll change everything. So I hope that helps you and that blesses you.